Like, people, you're in between the two lakes, so you have a ton of options on the lake. Or they could be like, hey, let's go to this place that's 8 minutes away, and we have a cabin that's in the middle of nowhere. And so people love it. And yeah, it's going really well.
Conclusion.
Yeah. And then we get to do it. We go, there's a pond there, there's a pole barn. You know, we go out there and just get lost, you know, shoot a little bit, hang out. Like, I want my kids to go out there and do the same thing. Like, it's great hunting property. So, which is something I grew up around and I haven't done for like literally probably almost 20 years, you know? And so I was like, I want to get back into that.
For sure.
So, and it's something I want to learn with my kids too. So,
as they're growing up, like taking them out there and showing them like what the great outdoors is all about, that sort of thing.
Yeah. And this phone service is awful. And I love
that's good.
Yeah. There's good Wi-Fi there, but like, which is like set, like we had to like put a dish somewhere and like shoot it through the trees. Yeah. But the Wi-Fi, if you need it for work, but like the phone service is awful. And I love that. Like, we tell our guests like, hey, the service is terrible. Yeah. It's good. We want the service to be terrible. Yeah. So that's kind of like the vibe we try to go with.
One of the most common themes that you'll hear on this podcast is family. The Impact Network is all about people coming on the show and talking about the impact that they are having on other people's lives. But what about the impact that people are having on their lives specifically? Family is one thing that we talk about. At the time of this introduction recording, we've recorded a handful of podcasts, and every single interview, the guest has talked about family in some way, shape, or form, whether it's a spouse, whether it's children, parents, friends, or mentors, whatever it is. There's always something around family. And on this episode with my good friend Alex Nickla, we talk about family and how his family on both his side, his wife's side, his children have impacted his life in many different ways. So Alex Nickla is the owner of the Nickla Group. It's a real estate brokerage based here in Northwest Indiana. Specifically, his office is in Crown Point, Indiana, on the square, if you're familiar with our area, right outside Chicago. And Alex, I've known him for a good 4 or 5 years now, and we actually met for the first time before I even went into business on my own. That's how far back we go. And then he also attended a school that, we actually, the school I went to, we played sports against them in the leagues during soccer and basketball season, that sort of thing. So he and I have known each other for quite some time. And he and I have stayed in contact. We work together. He has his own podcast and that sort of thing that does really, really well. And so make sure you guys do go check that out. But if you're in the Northwest Indiana area, make sure you do connect with Alex if you're interested in buying or selling a house. The Nickla Group is just a fantastic group to be able to be a part of. But back to the episode is specifically some of the things that we talk about are family. And I was actually able to relate quite a bit because his wife is Hispanic and so is mine. Mine's 100% Mexican. And early on growing up, especially in my life, I had one sister who's 13 months older than me, just 1 year older than me, and then my parents. The rest of our family, cousins, aunts, uncles, all that lived down south. So family was never really anything that I kind of like adapted to early on in my life. Yes, I loved my immediate family and still love my immediate family. However, it wasn't ingrained in me that family. Once I married into a Mexican family, that changed a lot. We actually talked about this quite a bit last week, me and my wife, on some of the changes that we've had in our lives in the last 5.5 years that we've been married. And Alex went through the same thing with his family, not like super family oriented growing up and that sort of thing. But then once he married into a Hispanic family, it was so much different. It was all about family and that sort of thing. And he talks about his wife's grandma and that sort of thing, and just how intimate they are with the relationships with their children and them alone. So this is going to be a great episode. Alex brings a lot of really good value. And once again, if you haven't already, make sure you have connected with him. Without further ado, I'm super excited to introduce to you my good friend, Alex Nickla. All right, this is the Impact Network, and I'm your host, Josh Culler. This podcast is specifically meant to highlight people that are impacting others' lives, and in a world that we have crazy amount of influencers, I want to highlight some impactors. That's kind of a term I'm coining, right? So on this first episode, I am super excited to introduce my guest, Alex Nickla. Out of Crown Point, Indiana, is that safe to say? Like, born and raised out of Crown Point. Okay, so you're born and bred there. Gotcha. I'm like I'm a mutt. Like I born in Hammond, then grew up a little bit in Calumet Township, then now at Cedar Lake. So
I had a little bit of Alpine there early on.
Okay,
but it was separation. Like my life was still in Crawford.
Yeah.
My mom lived in Valpo.
Yeah,
back and forth.
I feel you.
Little Porter County.
Gotcha. So Alex is a very good friend of mine, a broker owner of the Nickla Group, local to Northwest Indiana, and office is still in downtown Crown Point.
Yes, sir.
Right on the square. So Alex is a good friend of mine, about the same age. You're 29. Okay, you haven't reached 30. Okay. So you're almost there. I'll be 31 this year. But Alex and I had originally met for the first time before I went into business. At least I don't know if you were 100% in the business yet.
Mm-hmm.
I was still working with Tom over at Good Success, and you. I think you had reached out to me about connecting and that sort of thing. We met up at that cafe in Crown Point.
It was I overheard you talking to. It might have been even if I can name drop, because I think him and I are doing a deal together right now. It might have even been Luis Sosa. I don't know if you've ever sat down with him at Banga, but either way, if not, we just chopped.
It might have been,
but I think you were at a meeting with him. I heard you talking. Okay. You're saying a ton of stuff that I'm like, that's like this guy should. I need to be friends with this guy because we're aligned.
Yeah.
And so I heard you talking. I think I even I was like, hey, dude, I love the stuff you're saying. Like, we need to get connected.
That's right.
So I remember I forgot to talk, and I was yeah, dude, I'd be friends with this guy because there's so many things you said, man. I was like, yeah, like I want to sit down with that guy. So then from there, we got connected after that.
That's right.
So I like hopped in the middle of your.
Oh man, I forgot about that. That's crazy.
At Cafe Fresco.
Okay, gotcha. That's right. Yeah, and I haven't seen him in a little bit of time, so I got to reconnect.
I'm doing a deal with him right now. I'll shoot him a text. Okay. I'll tell him I'll say, dude,
awesome. I'll have him on the podcast as well. Love that guy. Yeah, for sure. Well, anyway, so obviously, like I mentioned, the point of the podcast is there's a world full of influencers, and my business specifically is in the content creation side of things. So we manage podcasts, YouTube, social media, and stuff like that. And I'm very careful about the type of client that I bring on. Like, I want to make sure it's somebody that is truly doing a good work, and making sure that their audiences and the people that they're serving are being impacted in a very positive way. I've had to fire a couple clients because I felt like they were doing others wrong by the way that they were kind of framing their content and stuff like that. Like, this isn't genuine. So, big world full of influencers, a lot of people putting out social and stuff like that. And I want to make sure that I'm highlighting the people that are impacting others, because I do think, and I'm going to get Gary on the show because he gives a really good explanation of the difference between somebody that's impacting and somebody that's influencing. You need both. However, I think that influence, like, for instance, I could be influenced by a Gary Vaynerchuk, but he doesn't know me. I know who he is, but is he impacting my life? Probably, maybe a smidge, but more influence more than anything. Somebody like a Gary Harper, who I've known for 25 years, he's impacted my life immensely, right? And I think that the focus of where I want to go with is just making sure that we're highlighting people that are impacting others to encourage you to go impact other people that are in your life, right? So,
dude, I love that, and this is the first time we're talking about this, and so I love that because it's such a good way of explaining it. I think 8 years ago, like when I was really getting into business, I would have the answer would have been I wanted to be an influencer as well. Like, I wanted to build something to the point where people listen to me, and what you're talking about is definitely aligns a lot more with who it is that I want to be. Like, somebody that. And we could talk. We'll get into that, but I love that, man, because it's the world is so loud now with just so much content and information, and everybody who has an influence is an influencer, right? And the truth is like I've questioned that myself a ton, because it's like I don't put out nearly as much content now as I did earlier on, and I think that has a lot. We can get further into that in the future in this conversation. But it has a lot to do with what you're talking about. Yeah. It's very much like, where's the impact actually happened, especially now me being a father. Yeah. Like, that's where my focus on impact is. Mm-hmm. And as a husband too. And just a small little business owner in Northwest Indiana, I'm finding my fulfillment through that, and not through people that like have no idea who the hell I am, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't have an actual impact on them. So the fact that I'm first here over Gary Harper is insane. And Gary, I'm not happy you're sick, but I'm just grateful I get to say first.
We'll let him know. Yeah, we'll let him know. Gary, knowing Gary's schedule, we probably won't have him on.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
But
Exactly.
we'll make it work. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny you bring that up. So one of the things I think about when it comes to impact also is you don't even have to be a social media person in order to impact others. You're giving an example of a father now, and then like a husband. If you're a child of your parents and impacting them and that sort of thing. Your friends, your network, and in you specifically in the realtor space, it's like serving your clients. So great example is tomorrow I'm having Jeff Lyons come in to do this podcast and sit down with him, and he impacted our lives immensely a couple of years ago because, as a business owner, you should probably know this, it's really difficult sometimes to get a house.
Yes.
So especially if you've not been in business, at the time, this is 2 years ago, that would have been only 3 years that I was in business. And he pushed this deal through the finish line, and it sucked.
Yeah.
And he impacted our lives immensely because he was committed to it. And there wasn't one time where I felt like he got frustrated. Now we joke about it now, like, he was sort of like ready to throw the towel and stuff like that. But he made it work. So there just the things that we do. I mean, like I told you, we're not going to be having just business owners on here. At some point, I'm going to get my dad on here. At some point, I'm going to get my mom. I'm having my pastor come in at some point to do an interview and that sort of thing. And I just think that, like, in your daily life, the message here is making sure that you're impacting people that are in your circle, the ones that you have communication with. And on top of that too, and this is something maybe you could talk about also, is like, I also think about when you are coming in contact with people you don't know, because, somebody at the cash register that you're checking out, you get them an attitude just because you're an a-hole. And that's how you talk to people. Like, you could really ruin their day even more, and you don't really know what they're going through. Like, there's a million and one things that could happen in somebody having a bad attitude at a cash register.
Yeah.
And it's not always because they have a bad attitude, maybe something, they're human too, So that's some of the things I think about. But one of the things I want to go into with you is one of the first things I really want to talk about is my number one core value in life and business is respect. It's like, if you disrespect
I'm
me,
laughing because it's my wife will hear that and she'll be like,
yeah. Okay, got it. So and that's probably why we align so well, right? Okay, so for me, respect is my number one core value. So I vet, like, subconsciously, every single person I come in contact with, I'm vetting them from a respect level. And I'm the type of person that I give trust first. You have to lose it. Respect, you have to earn it, though. So for me, it's like there's kind of levels to it. But one of the first impressions I had about you when we sat down in that cafe was like, dude, this guy like has earned my respect immediately just because of the authenticity that you just kind of shine through.
Nice.
And you and I every once in a while like running to each other at the YMCA and that sort of thing. And like, I never get a different Alex. It's always the same Alex. So crack the code for me, man. Like, what do you what do you do affirmations? Or you like, what are you so focused on positivity for?
Dude, thank you for that, man. That means a lot. It's funny because, like I said, that's one of our company's 5 core values, but it's also one of our family's core values. So, so when you were growing up, was that something in your family, like your parents?
Yeah, my dad, for sure.
It was just like any respect, no matter what.
Yeah, I like somewhat feared my dad, but it was more out of respect more than anything.
Yeah, as a kid, I remember that was both my parents, both my mom and dad. Respect, that word was just always used. Mm-hmm. So I found that, like, the reason I asked that is because that's how it was for me as a kid. It was like my parents just ingrained respect, no matter what the situation was, and not knowing it as a kid. But I remember getting to the point where, like, I remember being like 10, 11 years old, and my parents would always tell me, like, hey, such and such mom said you were very respectful. So that word just always went in my mind. So when I got out of, and it ended up benefiting me as I got older, because the fact that my parents ingrained that in me was to my benefit when I got into business, because when I was 19, I could call my parents' friends. Yeah. My friends' parents. Because my friends' parents remember me as the respectful kid. Mm-hmm. So when I would call them, they would all say, Alex, you were always so respectful and you always worked very hard, like in sports. So they remember me as someone who worked hard in sports and someone who was respectful. Yeah. So I was able to earn a lot of their business. Now, some of them, he's too young, and I get it, talking to a 19, 20-year-old, even looking at it now, like, would I trust that person? But it was because of what my parents taught me from the time that my first memories of discipline were based on respect. Yeah. And so no matter who it is, you know, and I think I even show people respect who maybe don't deserve it. And I love how you said that, like it's earned. You know, there's a time where it can even, you know, my wife comes from a Hispanic background. And so my wife will constantly tell me, like, maybe you're being a little too nice. My wife is the nicest human being on the planet, but she'll even tell me, like, maybe you're being a little too nice on this one, because it's ingrained in me. So I've had to learn. It's now becoming a learned skill when I need to also stand up for myself. That makes sense. Yeah. So yeah, the respect thing, man, as far as like what I focus on, that just came from my parents as a kid. Like no matter where we go, and now me teaching my wife and I teaching our kids. It happened the other day, yesterday. My daughter's 3.5. My daughter is unbelievable. My Mila May is the best, and we got ice cream yesterday. She wanted ice cream all day long. So, when I talk about my kids, it's emotional. So I apologize. But she wanted ice cream, so we went and got ice cream. Got home, beautiful night outside, and her friend across the street, she wanted to go give him some of her ice cream. So I called Jake over. He walks over, and kid's his age, or the kid's her age. And she gave it to Luca's dad and was like, can you give this to Luca, please? You know, and she's all respectful. And he was like, this is so nice of you, right? And my daughter always says, please. She always says, thank you. She's always just respectful. And it, you know, her teachers love her. And so it's one of those things where it's like, now I'm trying to pass that down, because at the end of the day, man, everybody, I like what you said, like you naturally give trust. Yeah. And I'm kind of I'm the same way too. Like I overly trust even when it's not deserved. But the respect thing, man, it's like, it's just so important to me at the end of the day. Even when there's times of being disrespectful, I think that, you know, my viewpoint as a child of God, I just look at how Jesus would have done it. Yeah. Even if you're not a Christian, you can still learn from the guy. I don't think that, you know, in instances where Jesus could have been disrespectful, he was respectful. Yeah. And it's still something where it's like, wouldn't you at least want to be like that? Yeah. I don't know. I'd want, even if I don't believe in Christ and Jesus, like I still would want to be like that. Like if someone's going to be disrespectful to me, I think it's a pretty incredible thing to be able to respond still respectfully.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's so many life lessons. Like I always think about too, like kids going into like, you know, their careers, and you know, maybe you're interviewing for a job or something like that, or maybe you land the job and you're working for a boss already, and there's somebody there that is kind of managing you, and you're like, wow, like there's something about this person that I could follow him. And I think it naturally leads with respect. It's because they respect that leader and they're willing to follow that leader. So lesson like top down is, as a leader, like there's been times where I violated my own core value and I disrespected a team member. Yeah. Dude, I feel like garbage after that, because I know I did that wrong. Always. So then my natural, not that I'm perfect, but my natural response after that is I go into a sulk mode. Yeah. And then I don't wait. I go right to that person. And if I've made the mistake of like calling somebody out like on a team meeting before. And I went to that person first individually, hopped on a call with them, apologized to them. And then I sent a message to the entire team, like a video. My team's all 100% virtual. But I sent a video recording to my team saying, like, guys, I screwed up. And this, like, I apologize. This person did not deserve that. And it's just like, it's a practice. It's really hard to get it going. And then once you have it, it should be second nature. But once you got it, it's like, it's hard to shake it. You know, respect is something that, like, it's top down. It's managing up and it's managing down. And it's, like you said, it's your children. It's your parents, you know, like for me, like I said, my dad, like I respect my dad immensely. Yeah. And there was, you know, times where I wasn't the greatest kid and like growing up, and there was times where I would like go to do something and I'd think like, my dad wanted to. Yeah. Like it was more, it wasn't even out of fear. It was more out of like, damn, I don't want to disrespect my dad's name, you know? And that's kind of how I led.
That's an impact. That's why you want him on your show.
Yeah.
Right? That's an impact.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
Exactly.
I love that.
So, you've talked about a handful of different people. Like in your world, what is the most impactful person that is in your life, and why are they impactful to you? Like, what's the best way you're going to describe it?
It's definitely my wife. When I met my wife, I was 19. And my wife was like the example of everything that I ever wanted, like in a spot. Like I always knew as a kid. And Matthew McConaughey talked about in his book Green Lights. There's one thing that stood out where he said, like he always knew, he didn't know exactly what he wanted to be when he grew up, but he always knew he wanted to be a father. And when I heard him say that, I was like, that resonates with me a lot. Because as a kid, I was like, I mean, I wanted to play like professional sports, as like every kid does.
Yeah.
But I always knew one day I'd be a dad. Like if you'd asked me at 10, I would have been like, what are you talking about? But I knew like, yeah, I mean, I'm going to have kids, you know?
Yeah.
So anyway, when I met my wife, she just had so many things about her that I was like, this is, I don't want to screw this up. And at 19, as a 19-year-old dude, you're not thinking about that like you should. You know, you're thinking about, well, how many other girls are there? And what other things can I do? And so naturally, when I met my wife, I was in a stage of, I want to have a few years of enjoying and living and doing whatever I want to do. God had a different plan, and he put this incredible woman in front of me and made me realize that if I let it go, it would be the biggest regret of my life. And but because of her at a young age, when I met her, I was just, it's so funny, man. There's so many things about her. Everything about her, who she is as a person, what she values, what's most important to her, what she looked for in a spouse. They're all the things that I wanted to be, but I wasn't there yet. So I had so much work to work on all of those areas in my life.
What were some of those things?
So, like, for example, let's start with one. I always, my mom as a kid, I went to St. Mary's, so Catholic school. My mom when my parents separated, went to a non-denominational Christian church. I started to kind of get into my faith, but I was really, at that age of 19, I was a lot more disconnected from it, you know. I was way more focused on that point. I'm like, okay, now my focus is business, money, personal development. And so my wife was not like that at all. When I met my wife, just for context about her, she was going to college, working 2 jobs to pay for college, while going to school to basically become a social worker. So she just wanted to work with kids who are underprivileged. And I remember asking her, because I was in such a money mindset at that time, like, how much money do you want to make? How much money will that make? And she's like, I don't know how much money that makes. And she literally
didn't motivate it.
She literally didn't care. She just wanted to go do what she wanted. And I was like, wow. Everyone else I've ever known, it's kind of just like they're going to a certain career position because of the money.
Yeah.
I've never met anyone like you. And then so that was really 2. One was where her faith was at that time. And I knew that's like, although I was disconnected and not where I wanted to be at that time, she drew me back into that. You know, my mom was the start. My wife was kind of the catalyst to move it to where it is now. So it was faith. Secondly was just the idea of like realizing that like even before you have any money, it's like even when you get it, it's not necessarily what it's about. You know, my wife knew who she was, knew what she wanted to be. And then, you know, other things, man, all the way down to like, I'm the type of person that as a young boy, I was definitely motivated by girls, right? Now, I didn't do a lot of ridiculous things like a lot of guys do. I was very controlled in myself as a kid, but at the same time, you know, when I met her, I was very much like, all right, I'm gonna unleash that a little bit. And then she walked into my life, and I think that was, for all the reasons, a sign. And my wife made me realize just the from more of like a sexual perspective, like dude, there's no fulfillment in going out and trying to hook up with as many human beings as possible. Like, I've never done that exactly, but I don't need to do that to figure it out.
Yeah.
Like, when I met my wife, man, she helped me realize, like, the beauty of having a actual life partner. And it's so crazy, man, because, like, as time goes on, I never thought I would actually say that. Like, I just always thought marriage, like, as time goes on, you kind of get tired of your spouse. I'd literally become more obsessed with my wife.
Yeah.
It's so weird, bro, but, like it's we've been together 10 years, and I see her, and I'm like, I think she's had 2 children. She looks unbelievable, and she looks at herself, and she's like, I don't like how I look. I'm like, you literally look unreal.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't know you had 2 kids, and to me, I find you more attractive now, right? So there's a lot of other things that go with that, and I mean, if I were to write down all the things like that my wife had helped me with, I'd say the 4th thing would be family. My wife came from a Mexican family, and their whole family, like, the connection is different, bro.
It's different.
And I love it, dude. I love it so much. Like my mother and father-in-law, when I met my in-laws, I had this, and I hate to say this, but I've said it before, but I kind of was like, not disappointed, but I was kind of like, I just never expected this is how my in-laws would be. You know, I thought maybe I'd marry like into a white, affluent family from, you know, St. John, Crown Point, you know. No, I married into my mother-in-law glazes cabinets, and my father-in-law is a contractor, works with his hands, always has. My mother-in-law barely speaks English. My father-in-law is pretty broken English, but they are the greatest human beings on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and they helped me. My wife helped me to realize the importance of family. Like, you can take everything away from me.
Yeah.
If I have we'll call them our tribe, not just, and by family, I mean the people that are closest to us as well.
Yeah.
There's a period of time where we're like, do we want to live somewhere warm? I don't even care about that anymore. Like, I have so many people that are close to me that I don't need anything else. I literally need nothing else. You could take everything away. I don't care. As long as I have them, that's all I need. And so my wife helped me realize that. It took me a long time. It took me making money, and it took me achieving, and it took me trying to find fulfillment through unfulfilling things to realize that, like, she was right the whole time. Mm-hmm. So I'd say those are probably the main things, but my wife has absolutely had the biggest impact on me, dude. I still just like almost, daily, I thank God for that blessing, because it's like, that was the greatest blessing in my life. Yeah. Was her coming in and staying with me at a time where I was not ready to commit. Mm-hmm. She stayed with me for 12 months. Mm-hmm. She had every reason to walk away. And the day she was ready to walk away was the day I told her I was ready to commit. We were in Phoenix, Arizona. It was a year. She was like, I'm done. She'll tell you the full story, but I introduced her to a friend of mine. Friend of mine comes up, Drew Crow. Drew's like, hey, man, introduce me to your girl. Because at this point, we had been talking a long time. We were not officially boyfriend, girlfriend, right? Mm-hmm. He's like, introduce me to your girl. And apparently, I don't remember this, but apparently I said, this is my friend, Saida.
Oh, no.
She let go of my hand.
Oh, no.
And it was done, right? So like, oh, what an idiot. I don't remember saying that, dude. I still don't think I said that. But she has an amazing memory. Regardless.
I was going to say, dude, I'm married to a Mexican, too. They don't forget that. They do not forget.
So she, that day I was like, oh, something's off. And I was like, did I say something wrong? I don't remember what I said. I think that still holds true. I still forget this. What I say? So I'm like, all right. So that night I was like, God just spoke to me, man. It's like, you either are going to let the greatest thing that could ever happen to you walk away, or you're going to give up the stupid things that you think are going to make you fulfilled and happy. Just because you've never done them. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And that was my thought. Well, I never really had a life like that. It doesn't matter. I've never been that person in the first place. And so that day I was like, and I remember the swing of emotions. It was like, things are terrible. And that night it was like, I'm ready. Like, I want to do this. And she took a few minutes. And she was basically like, asshole, It was just like, but it was great, man. Thank God she didn't leave me. Yes. She's my biggest impact by far.
Yeah, that's great. There's so many similarities in my story too, in parallel to yours. I'm married to a Mexican too. And growing up, so like my parents, next to my wife, my parents are the most impactful people in my world. I have one sister that's older than me. The rest of the family on both sides, my parents' sides, are spread out throughout the country, and there's not a lot of us. Like, it's so much different from a culture of like the way I grew up to the way that my wife grew up. Yeah, and obviously, again, like you can relate to this, but like when I got into, I still feel like I'm being introduced to new family members every single time, and I've known her for 10 years, 12 years, all the time, dude. And so like I mean, it's so much different because the way I grew up, and I didn't even think about this until you've even just said it, is I was never really the type of person that was like super family involved, like I'm all about family and that sort of thing. Like I just never was that way. I was close to my sister, but not from a standpoint of like, like we were thick as thieves type thing. I loved her. I'd do anything for her, but like the way I can kind of relate it is my wife and her sister's exactly a year older than her. They're best friends, and then she has a younger sister.
My wife's right now with her sister.
Yeah,
shopping.
Yeah, exactly. It's such a different culture, like family, and so like in our a great example in our wedding, like my entire half was friends, and then her entire half was all family. That's the best way to explain it. But something that you said that kind of slapped me in the face, I've never really thought about, is like, dude, I, for a long period of time, grew up like, I want to get out of Northwest Indiana. I want to get out of here. I want to go somewhere. I'm not a Florida guy. I want to go to like Colorado. I want to go to Montana. I want to go out to like Northern California or whatever it is. Yeah. And when I started dating Gabby, I made it very clear to her, like, I do not plan on staying here. I don't. Like, I want to get out of here. And, that was really tough. Like, early on, it was really tough for us to kind of come to an agreement on it. And I think slowly but surely I started getting to a point where I was like, family. I started seeing it. And her family's kind of split up too. But even so, they're all like family. Family comes first on everything. And I started getting around that. And then we got to a point where I think it was like 4 years ago, we were starting to look for a house. We were living in Calumet Township, and we were starting to look for another house to kind of upgrade. And I was, kind of going through stuff, and Gabby's like, hey, didn't you want to move away? Like, I'm fine if we want to move, like, I'll give you up to 4 hours away. I'm like, well, I don't want to go to Detroit. You don't want to go to Indianapolis, Milwaukee. Like, there's nowhere within 4 hours. But my initial thought to her was like, I'm fine with staying here, but I want to get out of, like, the region.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of like shocking to her. She's like, why? What made you change your mind? I'm like, I kind of want to be close to family.
Yep.
And I've never wanted to do that.
Yeah.
So we moved to Cedar Lake. So now we're like, I mean, my parents and my sister's family all live 15 minutes away, but her dad lives like an hour because he's in East Chicago.
Yeah.
But like, until you explain it that way, I've never thought about that. And it's crazy.
And just thinking about the idea of like what that means. Like now my focus now is with family. Okay, think about this. The one thing I thought was interesting, there's a study that I found that Hispanic culture has the longest life expectancy. Now, I don't know how true that is because I would have thought maybe it was parts of Asia, regardless. But there was one study that I had seen and that it was Hispanics. So when you think about it, though, and I heard Hispanics talking about this, that's why I got some of these thoughts. But the first thing is, in like American culture, it's like, all right, when your parents get old, we always make the joke, we'll find you a nice home, like we'll get you into a nice home, a place that they take care of, like, nursing home. In Mexican culture, if anything bad happens to their family, they're moving in.
Yep.
If they get older, they're living with you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think about the idea, like I grew up, just the whole idea, the idea of like in-laws. It's like, in-laws, you don't really like, you're not supposed to.
Yeah, that's the way it's portrayed does.
Yeah, you're not supposed to like your in-laws. Like,
right.
You're not supposed to like hang out with your parents. And so, but when you think about it, it's like, all right, why would somebody live longer? You could argue food, you could argue lifestyle. I think the number one thing that would make somebody live happily and live longer and stay healthy is by far and large the relationships that you have.
Yeah.
So
it's the emotional impact.
When grandma gets old, Tita's moving into my house.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
if Tito passes away, grandma's coming to live with us. Like, that would never have been the case if I'd never been around this culture.
Yeah.
And when you think about that, though, imagine grandma. Grandma went from like maybe losing a husband or whatever it is, or grandma and grandpa both. Now they're around their grandkids. Like, they get to be with their grandkids.
Right.
When I went to Mexico last week for a bachelor party, and my Spanish came in handy with all my white friends. And but my mother-in-law came over, and she stayed for those 5 days and stayed with my wife is happier around her mother. Like, my kids are happier when they're around grandma. Like, and my mom helps a ton. My mom is such a great help with our family too, and my sister as well. But just in general in that culture, when I think about like, well, the life expectancy thing, well, number one is family is the relationships mean more than anything, and they're always around each other. The support of the family. Two, also is like, if you get an ear infection, next thing you know, there's like tomato juice on your hand. And it's always like some natural remedy. Like my mother-in-law would, like, when our daughter was born, she didn't have hair, right? She was like bald. My mother-in-law's like, you take the tomato juice, you put on the head, and you're like, tomato juice on the head? What are you talking about? And they have all these natural remedies for stuff. Yeah. So they don't like resort to prescriptions.
Yeah,
and like
great. They're anti-big farm.
Yeah, right, exactly. So like they always have a natural remedy for something. But the thing that makes the most sense to me is like when your heart is healthy because of relationships in life. And that to me, man, that's like when you're talking about impact. Yeah. Impact comes from relationships. Yeah. It's like, that's at the end of the day, take all possessions away. I have my relationships and they're deep and they're genuine. And like, I'm so blessed to have dozens of them. Like, I've thought about like, what happens if I go broke? Like, what if I lost everything?
Actually, I think about that all the time. But
like, I genuinely probably have 25 people I could call.
Yes.
And like, and I know, first off, I like my in-law, like I can move in with my in-laws. I could move in with, like, there's no doubt about that. But my in-laws would probably be like, okay, here's like it. That's like, so all of that is just so important. So the money thing, man, the possessions thing, like I've got a couple of them, and every time I bought them, like this was the first Rolex I ever bought. I literally remember buying it, man, like, what the, like that did nothing. It did nothing.
Oh,
it did nothing. Yeah. The second one was one of the worst days. Like I had a horrible day. Like, and it was a dream watch I had from when I was 18, and I bought it, and I was like, I had a horrible day that day. This is supposed to be a great day. There were some things that happened family-wise with relationships. And I was like, I literally just bought this thing that's supposed to make me happy because it was a dream, and the possession meant it. I literally wanted to take it back. I had just had such a day with issues in the family that day. Thankfully, were resolved. But, again, just examples. And then same thing. I had a car I wanted to buy. I bought it when I was 24. First car payment, I was like, I'm over this stupid. Like, I remember, I'm like, I'd never had car payments until that car. I was like, this is so dumb. Like, why? Like, I'm done with it. I'm done with this. So all of those things, man, like, take them all away. It's just trying to find fulfillment through unfulfilling things. And like the things that are fulfilling, they have impact on you.
Yes.
And that's why I love what you're doing. My impact comes from my wife. It comes from my kids. It comes from my friends. It comes from my family. It comes from our clients. It comes from there. You can get it in so many ways, but those are way more impactful than than the influencer driving a Lambo, which is I don't care. I literally don't care that you have a Lamborghini.
What's funny? So one of the things I was going to mention was, and because as you were kind of opening that up, I was like, I think a big part of it. So similarly, if I decided to hang up, everything I'm doing, and I'm like, you know what, screw business, I want to go do something else. I do have like 30 to 40 contacts in my phone that I could call right now, and they'd be like, what do you need?
Yeah.
There's a time period, and this was like 3 years ago. I was in a mastermind, still in the mastermind, Collective Genius, and I posted in there. We were struggling like really bad at the time, and we were just kind of trying to find our grounds on like where our positioning was in the marketplace and that kind of thing. And I posted in there, and I was like, guys, I need help. And I just kind of like unraveled everything. And this is a mastermind where like, I mean, the most successful real estate investors in the world are in there. And I posted in there like, you know what? I pay this amount of money for this mastermind. I'm just going to give it a shot. Dude, I was in Mexico. And at that time, like, we were checking out of the hotel, and our credit cards would not ring up because they were maxed out and everything. No money in the bank, so I had to check out with our personal card and that sort of thing. And then when I got to the airport, when I typed that up, we got in the air. When we landed, my phone just exploded. And I remember a couple people leaving me voicemails. Like, who leaves voicemails anymore? They left me voicemails like, yo, you guys got enough money for food? You guys got enough money for, like, I don't know if you own a house or your mortgage or rent or whatever. Like, you guys taking care of that sort of thing? And, dude, I started crying on the plane when I was listening to these and reading these messages. And I'm like, we feel like a burden. And this happened to me recently, too. It's like we feel like a burden when we reach out to people that, like, truly could impact us because we're afraid to ask for help. And mostly that has to do with ego.
100%.
And I think a lot of times when you actually include people that can impact your life, it's because, like you, opened up finally to your wife to allow her to come into your life fully and commit to it. It takes us to do that. People that say, like, I don't have anybody to reach out to, that's your damn fault. That's on you because you didn't make the effort. It's not like relationships aren't a one-way street. It's a two-way street. I love the way Darren Hardy, one of the first books I ever read in the business world was Compound Effect. Yeah. And he explained it like, yo, relationships aren't 50-50. It's 100-100. And I try to instill that into my wife all the time. And we finally got it down. Dude, it's like if I have a bad day and I'm at like 50%, but she's at 100, we're still at 150%. Makes no sense in the math world, but it works. And that's the way that, like, including people in your life that are going to have impact on you and building those relationships. Like, it's not one of those things where, like, somebody's successful and then, like, you haven't built a relationship with them, you can reach out and get help. Like, that's not the way it works. Mm-hmm. You have to build that relationship with people, make effort, deliver value. And sometimes delivering value is just like, hey, I have this skill and I can do this for you for free. And this is how, like, most businesses start off. It's like, I can do this for you for free just to deliver a little bit of value. Do you mind if I do this?
Yeah.
And then Like, that's how you can deliver value, or it's investing your time or whatever it is to help them on something. What do you need help with? It's effort. It really is effort on your part. And I think a lot of people miss out on the opportunity of having impactful relationships because they're not willing to do the work it takes to build relationships.
Yeah,
you know,
100%. Completely agree.
So I just, and that was no different than the way like you and I met. You gave the effort to tap me on the shoulder and say, yo, I like what you're saying. Let's hang out, whenever you can. And we met up and
you've been very intentional with that too, inviting me to your birthday party. Yeah, all these things, right? Which I was so mad I couldn't go bald,
bro.
But
dope.
I don't even want to talk about it. I saw the photos, dude. And then this, like it's you're 100% right, man. And but yeah, I'd say that's probably the thing from my wife that I learned about family, because that takes what it is, like that has changed my viewpoint on my purpose in life, like the impact I want to have. Because thankfully my dad in a way kind of broke the cycle, but most of the men that has the last name Nickla, like first off, I don't even know any of them. I know nothing about them, nothing about them. And from my understanding, most of them were alcoholics, and most of them did not necessarily do great things. My goal is that this is actually watched by my kids, and by my grandkids, and they watch it and they're proud, dude. Like that, I go into we have a small podcast, 100 people maybe listen on YouTube. It's no big deal. And if we're lucky. And but I honestly only want right now 2 people to listen to it. And it's Camila May and it's Giovanni. Those are the only 2 that I care to listen to it. Like I do it because I want them to listen to it when they're older, and I want them to be like, that is my dad. Yeah. Do that'll get me. Anyway.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, no, I mean, and then you impact their lives. And I think this is kind of the point, is like it's not just about you impacting one person's life, 10 people's lives, 100 people's lives. It's the ripples that your impact can make in the universe. It's like if you impact your kids' lives right now, grow them up to be respectful to other people, deliver value, to work hard, whatever it is your values are, and then they pass that along to their kids and then people around them. The ripple effects are insane. It's crazy. You just multiply it.
My wife has a saying. So when I was like, I want to be an influencer, I want to grow, I want to build. My wife had a saying, and she hit me one day, and it was, she said, if you want to change the world, just go home and love your family. And that's like her favorite quote. Is like, that's how she looks at it. She doesn't care what other people think. She's just focused on being the best mom she can be, the best wife she can be, the best sister she can be, the best daughter she can be. It's like, that's how she does it. I'm like, that's cool. I still want to try to get millions of followers. No, it's like, that's changed. That's changed because, and if it happens one day, it'll happen because I'm genuinely impacting other people. Yeah. And because that, it's with focused effort trying to bring more of that impact. Like, but for now, I'm just trying to go home and love my family.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think that's an important thing, right? It's making sure that you prioritize the things in your life that are important to you, and not from like a smoke and mirrors perspective. You use the example of like, if you get hit with a video of, somebody in business that's like walking in front with a Lambo and they got cash guns and stuff like that. That stuff doesn't jazz me up either. Yeah. Like I have no interest in that kind of thing. I was on a podcast earlier with my buddy for my other podcast, REI Marketing Weekly. He's out in Chattanooga, Tennessee. His name's David Olds. He has, I think, close to 200,000 followers on Instagram, that sort of thing. Down-to-earth dude, wears a visor with his brand on it, and like always with a flannel and like a vest and everything. It's just like the most genuine-looking human being that you could ever meet, and he is that way. He's that type of person. And I told him on the podcast, I was like, dude, I think one of the things that elevates your brand more than anything is the fact that you are willing to be who you are, and you don't hesitate to do it. And so I think like it's also like a fact of, when we talk about impact, it's impacting other people to be yourself, and you're allowed to be yourself around those folks. That's important. Like if you ever think about somebody that you're kind of like, not necessarily afraid to be around, but you're like, oh, I don't know about this person type thing, then turn around and run away.
Yeah, my best friend, his name is Zach Cogat. We grew up 5 doors down from each other. Been my best friend that whole time. His superpower is just getting people to the point where they feel like it so quickly he can make people just crack their shell. Like, if you ever want to be around somebody who's a master at, and it's not a skill that he learned. He was just born with everywhere he goes. So I bring him everywhere because it's fun. It's like everywhere he goes, if he sits with someone, and he never says the same thing to the same person. He always his gift is naturally bringing people out of their shell.
Yeah,
and just all of a sudden, next thing you know, you're telling Zach your life story.
Yeah,
and you got there in 20 minutes. You're like, how did this? I didn't know you 20 minutes ago. That's his thing. I feel as though that's kind of I was, as a kid, when I was younger, I was always the friend that got to that point where if, my 8-year-old buddy and his girlfriend were breaking up, they'd come to me, right? If they were having issues on the basketball court, I was typically the leader. I was always the leader. Baseball team, I was usually the leader. When that stuff happened, when things got bad, I was usually the one people looked at. And same thing with my close friends. If real conversations needed to be had, naturally, I was just that person. And so that's what happened with me in business was, and this is kind of going to a little bit of a different direction, so I apologize. But when I was 22, the year I was 22, 23, I had done well in business. And I remember feeling like the most stressed and anxious I'd ever been.
Yeah.
And I remember, and this ties into even just the name of your podcast, I heard Tony Robbins say, think about, if you feel like you're in a rut, you're trying to find your purpose in a way, right? Think about what it is that you loved to do when you were a kid, but why did you love to do it? For me, it was only sports. It was all I loved was sports, basketball and baseball. I played soccer. I was pretty good at that too. At least I thought, but regardless, and football as well. And all of basketball and baseball were the main ones for me. And why did I love playing sports so much? Well, one, I love to compete. I just love competition. Mm-hmm. If you play a game with me, it's usually not fun. If you play a board game with me, it's not fun. Unless you're losing, right? My wife has helped me with that. That's another impact on. She was like, when we used to play, she was like, I literally don't like playing games. If we play ping pong, you're gonna play until you can't beat me, right? Or that's how I am, right? So my level of competitiveness is really bad. Secondly, is the growth aspect. Why is it that I would go home after practice and train more? Why would I go in the driveway and when it's raining and shoot? Because I love the feeling of growth. And you can always get better. Yeah. So I was competing and I was growing. But the one thing that I was missing that I got from sports was the impact. So when I was by myself before I had our team, it was just me. And I was impacting clients, but not to the point where it's you changed my life forever. I changed their life in that time. And there are some situations where they were more impactful than others. But for the most part, it was all right, I built great relationships with them and I had a small impact, but I wanted to have more of that team impact. Mm-hmm. And that's why I started our team, is because I was missing that natural, as a kid, the one that my friends came to when shit got bad, the one, my bad if I cussed, the one that, that my teammates would come to if things were rough and we were not doing what we needed to. God made me that way. I was that way when I was young. Yeah. And so now I was I'm missing that. I'm successful and I'm growing and I'm competing and I'm building a business and I'm young and I'm making money now. Why am I stressed and anxious? I'm missing the thing that I enjoyed the most, which was the impact on people. And that's why I started our team. And our team's small. There's 15 of us. But Gary Vee says this, and it stood out to me, and I say it now. I always tell our team, I'm selfishly, I want you to come to me and say 20 years from now and say, you changed my life. But unselfishly, I also want you to come to me and say, because of you, you changed my life. And I think that's why I was put on this earth, is because, it feels good for my ego for you to say, hey, because of you, this happened. But more importantly, I want you to have that change in your life. I think that's what I was put on earth to do. Yeah. It's hey, man, you said this at one time and that stood out to me. I think that's what I was put on earth to do. I think that's what my gift is, and my purpose on top of family and other things. So, again, I kind of went off on a tangent that wasn't what you were talking about. But when you were talking about impact, it's that the first place I go on that is I was missing that impact. That's why I started our team. Yeah. Was because now I get to do that within the lives of our team and I see their kids. When we do team events now, we have to rent places out that are big enough because all the kids, so the spouses and kids, there's there's over 50 people there now. And I'm this is great. And I want it to keep growing because of the impact that could be involved there, how it's affecting their lives and their kids' lives and their spouses and their marriages. That's what I want. Mm-hmm. That's what I want to be involved in. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. I think I have a similar story just because and it's different too because my team is 100% virtual besides my wife, my sister, and my sister-in-law all work for us. But at some point I thought about like, man, I want to do like a retreat where I can fly everybody in.
Yeah, 100%.
And do something like that once a year or something. It costs some money, but I think it's impact. But even just remotely, it takes a little bit more effort. But the effort is where the relationships are built and the impact's made. So
yeah.
Well, dude, we got to wrap this up.
An hour?
Oh, it's been an hour. It's been a freaking hour. It's crazy how fast this goes by. We could do a Joe Rogan and go like 2.5 to 3 hours, right? But
I don't think people care.
Yeah.
But I think I don't know if there's any question you wanted to finish off with or if we're done.
No.
But I mean, the things for me that are doing it, man, it's like where I'm at as far as finding fulfillment. It's in and I learned this from a men's retreat, but it's my sonship. Like my belief as a Christian is I am a son of God. Yep. And I tried to get fulfillment through other things, through my wife, through other things that were extremely unfulfilling. And I get it from just knowing like that God calls me a son. That's one. Yeah. 2 is the impact on people that are around my life. And 3 is, man, if you have a hunch in your life thinking about you want to be a parent, I mean, don't go just get anybody pregnant, all right? But try to make it within the confines of a family as much as you can. But man, if you've got that hunch, like I think I want to be a parent, it is the greatest blessing in the world. And if you can't, I don't know what that feeling's like. We have been blessed to the point that we didn't have that. So if that's your story, number 1, I'm sorry. But 2 is, don't give up. And obviously, I don't want to be that person just like go adopt. My wife has always had a heart for adopting, and I think one day we will. But being a parent, man, has changed my life. The way that I look at everything so drastically. Yeah. In every way. Like you look at everything different. I really don't remember my life before it. So it's hard to remember. My wife and I always say, like, what the hell did we do before we had kids? I literally don't know what we did before we had kids. And it's so different. Yeah. But the impact that they have on you, man, is awesome. So anyway, I don't know.
I'm excited. Yeah, I'm excited to be a parent at some point soon. But yeah, dude, this was a banger first episode. Absolutely incredible. Honestly, came into this with no expectation. I'm like, I want to talk about like the importance of impacting other people's lives and that sort of thing instead of just just kind of being in a plastic bag in the wind type person and living your life that way. Like, I don't think there's any value in that. So that's why I started this. But dude, awesome episode. Thank you for giving everything and being vulnerable. Like, I feel like there were some points where you were just like kind of laying things out. I'm like, wow, this is super impactful. Like, this is the definition of this podcast. So I appreciate you sharing everything that you did. Last thing before you go, and then we'll wrap it up. So if somebody wanted to connect with you, obviously, like we, want to plug, you as the guest and whatnot. What's the best way to get in contact with you? Nickla Group.
Yeah.
You guys.
You can find me Facebook, Instagram mostly. You search my name, Alex Nickla, or the Nickla Group is our company. So yeah, I'm on there. And then I don't know how many people will watch, but dude, I love having those conversations. Like, I'll get hit up very, very rarely, not common. But when I hear that, hey, I listen to this, I listen to that, I'd be happy to talk to anybody. Mm-hmm. So yeah, reach out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We'll have all that linked down in the show notes below. So if you guys want to be able to check that out, then make sure you do. But you've been listening to the Impact Network. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we will see you on the next one. See you guys.